Hey guys, I'm Corey Allen, and this is the Overton Report, and I need a haircut. Anyway, there is so much going on this week, over the past few days. It's almost hard to know where to begin. I will say, before we get started, this will be the last time that I ever even give this argument the light of day. Some local leftists, and we'll get into it, were using just lies, slander, libel to say that I'm some kind of white supremacist. You're not even going to believe it. But let's get on to some headlines first, and then we'll get into that in a minute. Of course, today we had news coming out that Joe Biden and his administration were opening a, what did they call it? What did the left news call it? A migrant teen facility. I think up until just today, they were called, especially under the Trump administration, concentration camps. Now they're teen facilities. The problem is that this exact same facility was open for a single month under the Trump administration, and it was deemed a concentration camp for children.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border.
But now it's different because in the article they talk about, they got butterflies painted on the walls and all of that. AOC came under some heat for not calling it out, and then when pressed, she finally said a little bit, but she said what we all said beforehand, that this is a nuanced issue because these children...
The fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the home of the free is extraordinarily disturbing.
Well, she didn't get this deep because I don't think she really goes this deep. But these children are not brought by their parents. They're brought, many of them, by traffickers. As a matter of fact, at the same time Joe Biden opened this facility, he also ended the Trump administration, the Trump era fight against sex traffickers who are here illegally and sex offenders who are here illegally. So that's interesting. Jobless claims, of course, it was way worse than anybody thought it would be. It went up to 861,000. I really don't know why they come up with these way worse than we thought. Or how this Breitbart article, much worse than expected. We all know that's not true. It's exactly what we expected. It's exactly what we expected. When you've got an old senile guy signing documents that are literally like the most powerful documents that can be signed in the world because they're being signed by the president of the most powerful country in the world, and with the stroke of that pen, tens of thousands of jobs disappear, of course it's going to be worse than the leftists expected. They think that everything just works off of rainbows, sunshine, and windmills until they get frozen. Coca-Cola, we all saw what happened with Coca-Cola. They used a third-party company with LinkedIn, and they put out this training guide for employees or new employees, for new hires, okay? So, I've heard some of the existing employees hadn't had to take part in this type of training yet. This was kind of like a beta test, a beta program. It's coming, I promise you. And I'll show you how we know it's coming in just a moment. But they told people to be less white. Be less white. I don't know how you do that. But it's okay that I don't know how you do that because they came with a handy dandy guide. How do you be less white? Well, here we go. Let's read it off. Be less oppressive. Be less arrogant. That is a white trait. Be less certain. Question yourself. That is be less defensive. When somebody attacks you and says you're being too white, don't say that's kind of racist. That's messed up for you to say that. That's defensive, and that is a white trait. Do you see how it's all circular? All this circular logic that they use? Be less ignorant. That no, this is not a joke. Be more humble. Listen. Believe. That's kind of vague. Believe what? Just whatever they say, whatever the boss says, whatever the multi-billion-dollar Coca-Cola company says through third-party equity, inclusion, and diversity training. Break with apathy. Don't be apathetic. And break with white solidarity. That's incredible. At the same time that this is happening, a New York school handed out whiteness charts to white parents and children. Now, this chart on one side is white supremacy, which anyone who's decent knows is a terrible thing. But on the opposite side is white abolition. White abolition? I'm very confused on what that means. We've got white supremacist, white voyeurism, white privilege, white benefit, and then now we're getting into the yellow and green, which are the good things that you can be. White confessional, I guess that means just admitting that you're white. White critical, being critical of the concepts that the Smithsonian and those have put forward as what whiteness is. White traitor and white abolitionist. And here's what it says. It says, there is a regime of whiteness and there are action-oriented white identities. People who identify with whiteness are one of these. It's about time we build an ethnography of whiteness. This concept is dangerous. And let me tell you why. When you base society around otherness and other, it creates tribalism. And from tribalism, you can justify all sorts of human rights abuses, of crimes against ethnicities or religions or belief structures or belief systems. And this is where I really got to hand it to the left. They took something that was universally panned, universally hated. Anyone who's decent hates racists, hates racism, hates white supremacy or racial superiority of any kind. And they took that and they built that up as the other. And that's good if you only look on the surface. The problem comes when you start taking that, that small defined thing and you start expanding it to mean other things. That's an issue because you can put all sorts of things in there, like border security. We want to be able to make our country stronger and better for the citizens that live in it. Therefore, we have strong borders so that we don't just have whoever coming in and reaping the benefits of that society without becoming a part of that society. Well, having that belief is now white supremacy. Believing that protecting federal borders, which is actually like the federal government's only, not only, but one of the very few jobs that they actually have given to them in the Constitution, is now white supremacy. You think that this might be going too far. Well, I disagree. I think that this has been the case for a very long time. As a matter of fact, well before I even started doing these things publicly, I saw it happening. And the argument always was, they're going to start tearing down George Washington statues. And we were crazy. They're going to start trying to erase people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln.
University of Washington, where students are demanding the removal of the statue of Washington. That's George Washington saying, quote, statues in place at the University of Washington are preservers of our dark past. This is not a history that should be glorified and celebrated as it perpetuates white supremacy and preserves its historical imposition.
Well, now people at Washington University are discussing taking down George Washington's statue and getting rid of the concept of George Washington. And this is in Seattle. The entire state is named after the man. What are they going to do? We've seen it happen already. At the same time, they say, look over here. We're putting everything in this white supremacy bubble. Everything that conservatives do is now white supremacy. Therefore, because we've created white supremacy as the other, and then we've thrown a bunch of things that are demonstrably not white supremacy into that bubble, we get to attack conservatives. We get to silence them. We get to censor them. We get to call them all Nazis, racists, and white supremacists with no proof, no evidence, no reasoning. Now, there's this group of local leftists, right? And, you know, usually I wouldn't even discuss this because they don't have a platform, like, you know, except the county sheriff and the politicians. You know, these people are trying to make a case against, you know, a number of people in the area, saying that they're white supremacists and, you know, KKK, whatever. So this one guy who runs around pretending to be a pastor, he has actually told his followers to attack me and attack my wife when they see us in certain places. But this isn't about that.
The evidence against treating them like civilized humans became crystal clear yesterday. We can't treat them as if they're humans.
No, this is way better. This guy holds up this picture, and here it is, holds up this picture and says, this is that guy from the Overton report, Corey Allen, right? And it's this dude, and he's holding a gun, and he's got at the camera, and he's got the banner, it says like Black Lives Matter. And then he said something along the lines of, yeah, you can see what he thinks and what they think about killing black people. So there's a couple of very, very big issues with this. But I don't even have to go there, because here's the biggest issue. That's not me. Wait, here's an even bigger issue. That is communist paramilitary leader Waleed Hakim of the Civil Defense Corps, who this specific man and his friends who run different 501c3s in the city and the county of Charleston have actually done weapons training with. Yeah. So he holds up a picture of a guy that they have done communist paramilitary weapons training with, who is a communist, and says it's me, and then says that I want to kill black people. This is insane. This is dangerous. He's already told his followers to attack and accost and harass me. Then he holds up a picture of somebody else, says it's me, and then tries to say that I want to hurt people based on their skin color. Disgusting. You are disgusting. And that just goes to a bigger point. Leftists, race baiters, hate mongers, they always do this. They create entirely false narratives, fake realities, and then they shove it down the throats of people who have no idea what else to think, who just don't know better. And they go to extreme lengths to make sure those people never know better. How do they do that? Well, they censor you. They stop showing your content to any new people. They take down entire social media platforms. They baselessly call you names that, of course, any reasonable person would never want to be associated with.
We can't treat them as if they're humans.
Of course that's what they do, because their arguments have no merit ever. Never have merit. Their arguments are always based on emotion and lies and a house of cards that if one card comes out, the entire argument falls to the floor. Because they're never based on principles. It's one lie stacked on top of another lie, stacked on top of another lie. And this is the last time that I will ever acknowledge that nonsense again. It's almost to the point where I don't even want to be like, obviously I'm not racist. Obviously I'm not a white supremacist, because in their twisted, psychopathic, false reality, somehow now that is proof that you are that. pure insanity. And now, of course, the leftists in the South Carolina State House are trying to argue for putting transgender women, i.e. men, in women's sports in middle school and high school. That is where the twisted reality gets you. That's where it gets you. So here we are, another day, another lie from the left. It's almost too much to keep up with, but I really appreciate all you guys sticking with me so that we can try and keep up. Before we leave, I just want to say that if you haven't checked it out yet, you really got to look at it. A report has come out saying that Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's go-getter, would not help find tapes for CBS of Bill Clinton that showed him doing real shady stuff with minors because she did not want to hurt Hillary Clinton's chances at becoming president in 2016. Proves two things. One, it proves that there are tapes of Bill Clinton doing really messed up things with minors, which we all knew and were talking about and got fact-checked and, slammed on. Like I said, another day, another lie by the left. Two, it also proves that the pedo clubs really wanted Hillary Clinton to be president. And now, of course, as we saw, the Biden administration has ended the Trump era policy and program of getting illegal immigrants who are sex offenders out of the country. Really interesting. Subscribe to us on YouTube and hit the little bell that will give you the notifications when we come out with a new video. Follow us on Parler because it's back. Follow us on Gab. Follow us on MeWe. And follow us on Facebook too. Show this to all your friends. When they call you racist, when they call you white supremacist and there's no reason to, it's because your points are very valid and they just can't argue them. They can't argue on the merits. It's sad. It's really sad. But hey, what can you do? And don't forget, guys, check out our podcast. It's just sign up on theovertonreport.substack.com and we'll catch you there. You'll never miss a podcast. We will see you guys next time. My name's Corey Allen, and this has been The Overton Report.